Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be joined here by the digital director of the Romney campaign. Politics is incredibly important in the technology space, not just because it's Zach's job to help elect the most powerful man in the world, but also because technology sets the stage for the next 4 years in advertising and causes. Countless startups came out of the Obama 08 campaign, and it brought Congress and other government branches into the digital age. They started using social media a lot more, and everything from graphic design followed 4 years after that. So presidential campaigns are a real proving ground for what advertising, causes, and business can do. A new study just came out about 15 minutes ago in the Journal of Nature that says Facebook quadruples the power of a presidential message or a campaign message. The direct effects of messaging someone boost turnout by like 0.4%, but then the indirect effects of that is much larger, 4 times larger in fact. So we're living in an age when social media is quickly catching up with traditional in its power to spread campaign messages. So with that, I want to turn it over to Zach. And the most difficult question I'm going to start with, who are you voting for president?
I think I'm going to go with Mitt Romney.
Bold statement. Okay. Does digital matter? Is it more important than TV?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, you can't run an election in 2012 without digital. I mean, it's a non-starter. The question is just going to be the degree to which it becomes more prominent in a campaign. And I think that there are many different facets to it. I think that there is the part that you have to focus on in building out. Nothing else has the scale and flexibility of digital. Nothing else allows you to have tens of millions of people come to a location and have a shared experience. Nothing else allows you to create communities online, whether it's on your website or on different platforms. But I think where you're really seeing the difference compared to television is this will be the first campaign in history where digital advertising moves from a list building and fundraising application to a persuasion and mobilization. And I think that's the first step towards it really becoming television moving away from the only kind of major source to a first among equals. And I think that's what you're going to see in 2016, that online advertising is redefining the way that people are going to get their message out. And so we're seeing that again and again.
I want you to make the case for digital. I mean, does it matter more than TV yet? Is it more important than television, less important, and how much?
So there's different ways to look at it. I mean, let's start from an online advertising perspective. We went into the field 2 years ago almost now with a study, Democrat and Republican firms, that found people that we call off-the-gridders, people who are time-shifting. They don't no longer watch live television. And we found of likely primary voters, 1 in 3 hadn't watched live television last week other than sports. So that means that no matter how many gross rating points you buy, you're going to run out of people to talk to. And so take a state like Ohio. That means 2 million people are going to go to the polls and vote who haven't been talked to if you don't do online advertising. So I think right away that's the first step in the recognition that you have to be online and you have to be delivering message online. Then I think beyond that you look at the rise of what Facebook is doing and what Twitter allows us to do and Google+, and across the board, people are experiencing and living their lives online. So you can't pretend that it doesn't exist. And so what we're seeing now is as site traffic grows, as people get more engaged with our campaign, all the offline activities are growing exponentially. Just this past Saturday, we had 20 millionth volunteer contact. That means for us, compared to 2008, that's 8 times more phone calls than McCain, and we've actually done more doors than they did through the entire campaign. So what we're seeing is online activity is translating offline, which is the only way we define success. We don't do this just to make ourselves feel good. I mean, there's a huge differential between movement and motion.
So that's interesting. Then that has to be attributable largely to online advertising because there's not 8 times more TV.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's not only online advertising, but it's online advertising that serves as prospecting that takes one then to an online experience. So you're creating these communities, whether or not it's someone taking a more passive role, following someone on Twitter, or as you go through a continuum, then going to Facebook, and then ultimately creating a Mitt account. There's kind of this full continuum experience that people can kind of keep moving up in the process. And then what we're seeing is those Mitt people are the highest likelihood turning out to events. They're the highest likelihood to go to phone bank and door knock. I mean, they're allowing us to talk to a much larger group and also make them more aware of what's going on, and that's what powers the campaign.
Interesting. And I promise not all of these questions will be so easy, but the next one is, give us a sense of what the cutting edge of advertising looks like. You guys are a big advertiser, especially on Facebook, and you can talk about that a little. What's the most advanced it's become?
Well, I think there's different components. You have to look at your advertising holistically. So, Facebook and Twitter become kind of silos of themselves because they're their own ecosystem. So with Facebook, we've really seen, and I know this was talked about yesterday, the rise of mobile advertising on Facebook. It's been the single largest presence that we've been able to kind of elevate in the last 60 days. We're seeing click-through rates now of 10%.
10%?
10% on our Facebook mobile. I mean, we're finding now, and I think we're one of the largest advertisers in the world with Facebook on mobile because of the success we're seeing. It allows us the ability to target. In addition to it, we're just seeing the engagement rates are so exponential relative to other mediums. There's that, but Facebook is one of many. It's a holistic digital effort. So what we also did as a campaign 18 months ago is we sat down and said, we're going to standardize all our online data. We're going to have a single DMP that's going to power everything that we do online. And so by using that, when we go, we no longer are buying sites, we're buying audiences. So we may buy from your site, but we're only buying the audiences that we've identified that we want to talk to. It eliminates waste and allows us to catch up with an organization that has more resources than us because they didn't have to go through a contested primary. It was the only way we were able to kind of scale up.
So just to give you an idea, I think estimates, the most recent estimates of click-through rates on Facebook mobile, which Mark Zuckerberg yesterday said was very important to the longevity of his company, is about 1%, a little bit above 1%. How are you getting 10 times that?
I think that not everyone's running for president, so we do have that going for us. I mean, there's always the three things in life, the sports, religion, and politics that are kind of the constants that go through. And so I think politics is always going to have that. But I think the lesson to take away is the ability to target and that people are engaging. I mean, what we've just seen, whether it's finding new community members, whether it's sharing content, that Facebook has become so powerful in a mobile perspective that it's really kind of shifted the way we allocate resources internally and has changed the way that we're engaging with people. I mean, we've also done stuff. We were the first advertiser in iAds for Apple to see the same thing. We're seeing much higher engagement rates with them.
How are iAds doing?
Doing really well. I mean, with them, it's a little bit of a different ad format. So for that, it's more video-based. And what we're seeing is over a minute of engagement with everyone who clicks on the ad. So they're actually staying, watching the videos, sharing that content, which for us is really kind of the most powerful part because first-person validation is always going to be the most valuable for us because our message, we want someone to take it and then share it with their friends, both so it grows exponentially, but also so they're validating what we're saying.
Okay, let's get a little political. Obama has 4 times as many Facebook fans as Mitt Romney. Michelle Obama had twice as many tweets per second during her DNC speech than Mitt Romney did during his RNC speech. And Barack Obama was the most talked about person of that week on Facebook. Are you outmatched?
No, I think that there's a couple things there. You've raised a couple points, so let's break it down individually. Sure. I think from the standpoint, if volume and vanity metrics were the only way, then Justin Bieber would be running for president. That's not a value to us. Like, it doesn't matter to us who has the most. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting about the Obama 52,000 tweets per minute is he's the only person who spoke on either week whose sentiment in the Twitter index actually went down while speaking. So just because people are talking about you, it doesn't mean that everything that's being said is favorable. Especially, a lot of people are talking about his record. A lot of people are talking about, is this the same type of speech from 4 years ago? That goes into the equation. So volume is not something we look at. Obviously, it is a indicator. It's not the indicator. I think on Facebook, what we found is they're actually almost 5 times larger than us on Facebook. I mean, they're at 28 million, and we're a little over 6 million people on. But what we found is from people talking about us or an engagement rate, it's 1-to-1. So for us, that's the only way we define success. We're not looking to have the largest numbers. That means nothing to us. And I think that if you actually looked at it, I'd be interested to know on both sides how many people are based in the United States. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. Like, that's just one aspect. If people aren't taking action based upon what you're doing, the whole point is lost.
There was a mini scandal in the digital side of the Romney campaign where it was shown that it was likely that someone was buying Twitter followers in July. The campaign saw a huge spike very quickly of accounts that were likely bots. How do you explain that?
Well, I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that we had nothing to do with that. I mean, I can't make the argument that vanity metrics and big list numbers mean something or mean nothing to us and then turn around and say I bought Twitter followers. Like, that would be completely... So I can sit here and tell you we had nothing to do with that.
So you did not buy Twitter followers?
We had nothing to do with that. And talking to Twitter, I mean, you can't figure it out. You can buy for $17 1,000 follows for your friends. I mean, it's not a violation of terms of services, I don't believe. That's a Twitter issue. I mean, we don't want them. We worked with Twitter. We had them removed. There's no value to us. And I think that the larger question is, it gets kind of lost. I think CNN did a study 2 weeks ago. I mean, something like 60% of the people who are following Barack Obama, they say, are some variation of bots or followers. Same with us, same with Justin Bieber, same with Lady Gaga. It doesn't matter in our estimations. What matters to me is the fact that when Mitt Romney puts a tweet out, it's going to be retweeted 3 times more than when Barack Obama puts a tweet out. That to me matters. It doesn't matter anything else. And it matters to me only because people are engaging. I don't have any other metrics. We've seen growth since I come on, 15,000 people to over 1 million, and yet our engagement rate has actually gone up during that time. That's the only way I can define success for my job.
Okay. Let's get back to the business. One thing that I've been very impressed with what the Romney campaign has done is how it's partnered with Silicon Valley. You work directly with Google and Facebook and other companies. Tell us a little bit about your most successful partnerships, how they came about, and the impact.
Sure. And let's understand why we do it. I mean, we couldn't make tactical changes after 2008 to be successful. We had to make structural changes. One of that was for me to become senior staff, that you had to have a digital director who was the equivalent of political director or comms director. Once you had that, you then were empowered to go out and find the best minds. We knew we had to go through a contested primary where we would have limited resources. So we had to be small and nimble, but we had to be smarter than the team that we could put around us. So we reached out, whether it was Facebook, whether it was Google, whether it was, now we're working with Square, we're working with Eventbrite, companies across the board. A great company here in San Francisco, Rally, is powering our online donations. I mean, these companies allow us to be so much more successful because they bring their expertise to bear and allow us to be able to glue together the best minds. Our job has never been to go and find all these people and bring them in-house. One, we couldn't have had the budget to execute that, and two, we didn't have the runway to achieve that. We had to be nimble while we were going through it, and so we went out, and in the primary, we pulled all these companies together, and then in the general, we were able to pivot into a much larger opportunity where we actually, with some people were able to take externships where people left their companies and have come and joined staff positions because they want to help. We've been able to work with companies like Google and find some of the best minds. I mean,
that's Google. Google has the externship with you guys?
Yeah, we've had that among others. I mean, we've done it with quite a few companies right now. Tout is another great company out of San Francisco that we've used. We have companies that allow people who are interested in supporting Governor Romney to come in and let us be better. We don't believe that we could be smarter than the marketplace. So my job really is to glue together the best firms to give us the best success as a campaign and as a party to be successful this cycle.
You had a really interesting partnership with Square. You basically turned all your volunteers into like mobile fundraising, and you raised a ton of money at the RNC with just a basic pop-up shop. Talk a little bit about how that came about, and like if you can, how much money have you made from that deal?
Sure. I mean, our partnership with Square is just an example of what we want to empower people and take what's occurring online, empower it offline. One of the challenges collecting donations is that money's transferring hands. You've got a lot of information on a piece of paper. We needed to figure out a way to make it PCI compliant, that we could take a mobile payment solution. Square fit that mold for us. And so we worked and we had a partnership. It's an exclusive with Square where actually if you download the Mitt Romney version of it, you are actually able to collect donations that go directly into Mitt Romney's for president account. And what we found to be very successful for us at every major event, we've taken over 2 elements as the digital department. We've taken over event ticketing, which we do with Eventbrite. We sit on top of their infrastructure, and actually today we've rolled out an event app that we built on top of Eventbrite that allows every person who goes to be able to kind of check in, syndicate their content through social, as well as just create a profile so in the next time it's faster for them.
And that's something any business can do.
Any business has the opportunity to, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's what we do. You go find the firms and you figure out, you wake up every morning thinking, how do I be the best at this? And our job is to figure out how do we partner with you so that we can leverage that knowledge. On the Square front, what it's allowed us to do is it allows us to go to every single event and do these pop-up stores. That we're able to do merchandise sales at all these stores and collect information and get people to have a better experience. And so, at the convention, for example, that week, we did over $1 million of sales across the country in our merchandise stores, which is, I think, a testament to what is possible if you kind of have the vision to achieve that.
If you had one or two big pieces of advice, the things that you've learned in advertising or getting people out to take real-world action, because that's the big question that we ask ourselves in digital. How do we get people to turn out? How do we get them to click? What are 2 big things that you've learned?
I think timing is the most important. I think we saw that with the VP app. That for us, that was a huge component of it. We had the only differential between us and the Obama campaign, we felt, once we became the nominee, was the VP rollout, because we were both going to do conventions. We have the 4 debates that are coming up, and so we had to take advantage of that. So we built into that opportunity, and by doing the app, we were able to have, by launching it, we were able to have hundreds of thousands of downloads, over 200,000 in the first 48 hours, which allows us now that even though our lists are theoretically smaller because we haven't been doing this for 6 6 years, that we have 58% market share in the mobile download space that we just saw. CNBC did something on it last week that talked about that. It allowed us to bring more people in because mobile applications are not a persuasion tool still, they're an activation and mobilization tool. So we had to figure out a way to provide value for someone to download that experience. And as a result, once we saw people sharing, we had 200,000 people follow us on Facebook or like us on Facebook the next day because people were sharing our content within the app. So the first is to take advantage of timing. The second is to structure your online advertising in such a way that your data is consistent. You have the opportunity on campaigns to always have siloed information. And I think while we're always gluing together the best minds, the hardest part for us is not to kind of chase shiny objects and to have things that have a good narrative but don't actually help the campaign be successful, because the only way we're going to define success is to win in November. No one minds if I sold 3% more widget. No one defines success that way. So we look at digital as it only works if it's complementing what we're doing on political and offline, and that's the way we kind of go after our job every day.
I hope we don't end on a negative note, but I have to ask. I mean, the partisanship, especially online, has gotten so bad. You may have seen the story about someone who bear-hugged Obama. A picture went viral. That guy owns a restaurant that's now being boycotted on Yelp. Does digital make us more partisan, more divided?
If it makes you more divided, what it does is it provides platform for people to share their opinions a lot quicker. I mean, I'm sure when I'm going to walk off this stage, I can't imagine what my Twitter feed is going to be like. I'm sure there'll be a lot of hate going into my Twitter feed after this. So,
nice.
There's a lot of things that happen. People have opportunities now to have dialogues that are there. I mean, I think it's unfortunate. It goes back to the idea that politics is one of those three kind of pillars that people have very hard feelings on, and that's the challenge with it. And I think what Twitter and Facebook and others have given you the opportunity is that they allow people to share their point of view on that, and sometimes to the detriment.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank Zach for joining us. I hope you all found it enlightened, and good luck in the campaign.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.